Welcome back to the Spurs 9501 podcast. I'm here again with Cam, our resident football expert. Welcome, Cam. Good to have you back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. I'm in Florida now. We'll be back
Okay.
in Savannah soon.
Okay, excellent. So, Cam, what we want to talk to you about is the potential of Harry Kane going to Bayern Munich. They've increased their bid now, I've heard, to 70 or 80 million euros. Give us your thoughts on how, if this is going to happen and what's going to be the end game here.
Wow, I mean, that's a really big question, isn't it? I mean, let's face it, 80 million for a player with 1 year left on a contract. Any other player, that would be a no-brainer, really, wouldn't it? Especially if he's not signing. However, there was Harry Kane we're talking about. And someone who's going to score you 30 goals, let's say they offer 90 million, that works out to 3 million a goal. If you average that with the price that we paid for Richarlison, which works out at 50 million a goal, it's pretty cheap, don't you think?
Yeah, I do think it's that. But let's try and do some maths on it, basically. So let's assume Harry Kane staying at Tottenham Hotspur gets us into the Champions League, because don't forget, top 5 gets Champions League next season. How much is a Champions League worth to Daniel Levy
It would be
in
worth
terms of
that.
revenue?
But Harry Kane alone will not get us into the Champions League.
No, but let's just assume Harry Kane could get us in. How much would Champions League football give us next
50
season?
million.
50 million pounds, right?
Yes.
So let's say that Harry Kane gets us into the Champions League. So we've got 50 million already. So really, if he's, if he's 30 million out, really. So you think that's not enough to keep him there for another season for Levy to say, look, I'll keep him. I'll curry favor with the fans and I'll get into the Champions League.
I don't think he will. Look, I mean, I think that remember 2 years ago when Kane was going to City, it took him 6 months to get his head right and to start scoring goals. For that part of the year from August until December, he actually was non-productive. And I think that was probably his least productive season we've had from Kane. And if that happens again, and he starts becoming less productive because his head's obviously been turned and his mind is elsewhere, then we're not even going to get the 30 goals, are we? We're not going to get the same Harry Kane that we got last season. We're going to get a disaffected, uninterested, and a pretty much pissed off Harry Kane, which we're probably lucky to get about 5-10 goals out of. And that's, I think, is more realistic than thinking, he's going to come back and hit 30 goals again because, he's all fired up at his last season. I don't think that will be the case. If my scenario is true, then there's just no way we can keep him, I feel.
But there's talk in the newspapers about Levy, your best friend, wanting 120. He wants 120 million minimum for Kane because he said he's one of the top 3 strikers in the world, which I agree with that 100%. But 120 million, is that realistic, do you think, Cam?
Not realistic, not with 1 year left on his contract. It might have been 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But even then, City refused to pay that kind of money, didn't they? So why would someone pay it now with only 1 year left on his contract? I mean, I wish that we could get that money. But would you trust Levy with that kind of money? That's another issue. What would he do with it? Who would he buy? He just blew 50 million on Richarlison, for God's sake. So I don't know. I mean, I think that realistically we could hold out for about 90 to 100 million. And I think that Kane will not be a Spurs player at the beginning of the season.
Okay, because they've had this talk about Kane meeting Thomas Tuchel, and these people at his home with his brother and his dad were there. Apparently Kane's agreed personal terms with Bayern, which doesn't mean anything unless he goes there. So, sorry, so he's got stuff happening there, really. So do you still think that Kane? Why would he want to go to Bayern Munich? Because I always thought he wanted to stay in the Premiership and beat Alan Shearer's record. Do you think he's saying, look, I'll go anywhere just to get out of Tottenham now?
Well, I think what he's saying is he'll go to Bayern Munich for 2 years, build his house right next to Chelsea, and then move to Chelsea.
You think that's the end game? He's going to be Chelsea?
Well, that looks more realistic than anything else. And I think the biggest fear that Levy's now got is that it's not just sending him to Bayern Munich, it's what next? Because once he's off our books, we've got no control of him, right?
There's
Spend 1 year at Bayern Munich, and next thing you know, he's at Chelsea, Arsenal, whatever the hell he wants to be, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. But the fact that he's building a big, massive mansion near the Chelsea training ground and that stuff, and Pochettino's there, really, I'm not into conspiracy theories and all that kind of crap, but it does seem that may be a long-term aim. Assumed 2 assumptions here. One is he doesn't get sold to Bayern Munich, in which case he can go to Chelsea for free next season. Or he does get sold to Bayern Munich, does his year, gets a couple of medals, and then goes to Chelsea after that. And that is probably more realistic.
But I mean, we'll talk about the Chelsea-Tottenham rivalry anyway, but do you think he would do that to the Tottenham fans, just leave to Bayern Munich and then go to Chelsea after that, or leave to Chelsea on a free next year? Do you think he'd do that to the Tottenham fans? He'd be reviled instantly, wouldn't he, if he did that?
Well, Pochettino's done it. Is he reviled?
Pochettino is not as much of a fan favorite as Harry Kane is. That's not a fair comparison.
What I would say to you is that most of the fans and everybody else will probably end up blaming. They will be a bit reviled. I think it will grate on a lot of people, but a lot of people will also be grateful and will recognise what he's done for the club, and a lot of them will blame Levy. I mean, I don't think that Kane going now to Chelsea would really grate on people, but once he's got his contracts done and dusted, I think there's no doubt in my mind if he doesn't go to Bayern, he'll be going to Chelsea next season.
And do you think going to Bayern Munich and winning Bundesliga, which is a given, and maybe winning a German Cup, getting far in the Champions League, is that all he's looking for? Trophies? I thought he wanted to win the Premier League and an FA Cup or something. Is a German equivalent going to be sufficient for him?
Well, I mean, a cup is a cup, isn't it? And Bayern Munich have got a chance of going far in the Champions League and potentially winning it, and also getting a medal. When your cupboard is bare of team medals, any medal is better than no medals.
Yeah,
and secondly, it's got to be taken a position of 3 to 4 years. What he's got his prime in the next 3 years, right? 33, 34. He'll be looking to wind down his career. So he's got 2 or 3 years. I think 1 year Bayern, 2 years Chelsea, and he's done. But, I mean, the other thing to say is the kind of game that Harry Kane plays, he could probably go on till he's about 35, 36, because he's more of a technical skill player.
Yeah. Let me ask you about, where's he going to fit in at Bayern? Because you've got all these great players at Bayern, where does he fit in as a... is he going to play? What's just 1 second? What formation do they play? Where's he going to fit in? Help our subscribers and viewers understand that.
I believe he'll play the classic number 9 position that Lewandowski played. He'll have all those players behind him, passing him the ball and just creating chance after chance after chance after chance. And that is the position that he'll get. And he'll get good 35, 40 goals just because of the creative players that he'll have behind him.
So Bayern play a 4-3-3, do they, with 2 wingers and 3 up front?
I believe that they will play the thing that will allow Kane to play as a classic number 9 like they did with Lewandowski.
Okay. Just a sum
striker.
Sorry?
As a box, a player who's basically a goal poacher in the box.
So he won't have to drop deep and create chances. He'll got plenty of people doing that. We've got Jamal Musiala and other people doing that, yeah?
Yeah, Muller and other players that they've got. They've got enough players.
Yeah. So final thoughts on Kane then? Definitely going to Bayern Munich, you think?
I think either way, it's going to be goodbye Kane, because let's face it, if he doesn't go to Bayern Munich, he won't do very much until December, until January. And in January, he's free to speak to any club and sign for them. Anybody, I believe, right?
Yeah, agreed.
And so either way, it's goodbye Harry Kane. I think Levy's holding out that once the transfer window closes, he's going to sign a new contract. Chance of that is very, very minimal. And I think it's going to be Chelsea, to be honest with you.
Maybe ask you, we'll talk about Chelsea rivalry later, but let me ask you, if he was to be offered, if he was offered 400k per week to stay, which is 1.6 million a month, which is put at 20 million a year, do you think he'd turn it down, or would he just definitely...
I think he turned it down 2 years ago.
He was offered 400k, was he?
He's offered pretty close, I would believe. He's already on 200, right?
Yeah, he's only on 200, yeah.
He turned it down then. He might have been offered 300 then, for all we know. We don't know.
And the beauty is if he goes on a free, then he gets a big signing on bonus because there's no fee to pay. So they get signing on bonus, goal bonus, all this stuff. Yeah, okay, Cam. So basically your theory is that he's going to leave for Bayern, stay there for maybe a year or two, and then come back to Chelsea and haunt the pants off Tottenham, yeah?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, Cam.